Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Coast to coast college football.
Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. He's going into the end zone.
The sickest college football podcast.
There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game. He ran the missed field goal back. He ran it back 109 yards.
It's going to be sick.
That's right. It's the Sick Podcast, coast to coast college football show. I'm John Lund, the East Coast side. He's Dan Lynch, the West Coast transplant. It is Thursday, June 19th, 2025, as we record this. And we're excited to bring you yet another show about college football. Dan, how are things on the West Coast going for you? I know people think LA has been burnt to the ground after the last couple weeks, but I think that's been a little bit overblown. You're sitting here looking perfectly fine.
Yeah, definitely a little overblown. That was in one little tiny part of our beautiful city that we call Los Angeles. But overall, doing well, John. Doing a little bit better than the folks from North Carolina and the Big Ten and the ACC and the SEC and the college football playoff. So Los Angeles is doing better than the college football playoff. I'll put it that way.
And better than Arkansas baseball fans, albeit this being a college football show. We were recording this after that game ended with LSU, and just the most series of unfortunate events you can imagine happened, unfortunately, to the Razorbacks, and they blew it in the ninth inning. They had a 2-run lead. One thing led to another, and they're going home, and LSU is going to the championship to play Coastal Carolina, which refuses to lose baseball games. So that should be thrilling. But for Arkansas fans, goodness gracious, just if you're watching replays of it, it's painful for those guys.
Yeah, I feel like kind of Arkansas in general, when it comes to Arkansas athletics, has just been rough over the last,
especially at Omaha. There's a curse or something going on over there.
Something going on there. Football, they're always just kind of middle of the bag. Every once in a while, they're like, hey, they're actually not bad this year. Watch out for Pig Suey. And then like November hits, and it's just like, oh yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Arkansas they're on the edge of really being a prominent SEC, program and all sports. But you know what? Actually, I think they're actually pretty good at gymnastics, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, just Pig Suey, man. Feeling for those tonight, man. But hey, Chanticleers, let's give them some love too, on and off the football field. Do we know if they have a teal baseball field? Or is it just the football field?
I think it's just the football field, but they should just go
Change
teal
it.
for everything. Put it on the baseball field, softball, put it on basketball, embrace it. Be like Oregon.
Exactly.
They don't want to put all sorts of things on everything that they own. Be like them with your teal. Put it everywhere.
Exactly. But yes.
It's just like Kansas State with their lavender. Bring more lavender things. I know sometimes they don't want to have it on the basketball uniforms, or it's just retro, or we're only going to do it some. Bring it always back. Don't be afraid of your retro item.
Embrace it. But yeah, shout out to Arkansas. Maybe they'll do a little bit better this year in football, but yeah, still rough night for the Pig Suey Nation.
Tough. That leads us to another installment of As the College Football Playoff Turns. Earlier this week, it was announced when the leaders of the College Football Playoff met to discuss what will be the future of said playoff. We heard a lot from the SEC during their media days on wanting to advance to 16, and 5 should be in if you win your conference championships. All 11 auto bids after that, though, so they can get the most teams in possible. Of course, always looking out for themselves. When the dust settled from the meetings, however, it was discussed and found out that nothing has been advanced. They're at a stalemate of sorts of moving it from 12 to 16. And we're basically at the same place that we started as the September deadline looms on when they want to make this decision, if they want to keep things the same for 2026 and a couple years forward, or if we're just going to rewrite history and move it from 12 to 16 and start anew, even though we're still in the infant stages of a 12-team college football playoff. God forbid we see what happens from it. But it was interesting to find out that after the SEC made its plea, the Big Ten and other conferences didn't really bend the knee, and we're still where we're at with 12 at this point, at least in June.
Which I was a little surprised about. I thought at least the Big Ten would say, hey, you know what? This is the way it's going. Let's not waste any time here. But as we've said in previous episodes, John, this is the Real Housewives of college football. Like it's just drama. It's just disagreements. It's moving on to the next episode. When's it going to happen again? And it did in beautiful North Carolina. Okay. Were you surprised by this? Did you think something would happen fast?
The Big Ten not really saying anything was a red flag for it not happening. But I also thought, as we discussed previously, that they might just not be saying anything. But behind the scenes, they're still thinking this is the way to go. They just didn't want a vocal voice to put forward that they were also on board with 16. But then you hear from guys like Brett Bielema who said, hey, you want to go to 16? That's fine by us in the Big Ten. But if you're the SEC and the ACC for that matter, you better be playing at 9 conference games like we do, or it's not going to be fair balanced like you're looking for it to be. So that voice coming out after we found out that nothing really happened was kind of the answer to, wow, they're really on the fence of doing it, but here's our parameters if you want to make that decision.
I've always been a fan of Brett Bielema too. Just a big boy who's going to have a big voice, who's going to walk in with his gut out, and you're like, okay, I respect that man, and I respect what he's going to say.
Dude almost got thrown out of a no one cared about bowl game. Got into it like crazy with the younger of the Beamers. He was ready to get thrown out.
Yes, exactly. So maybe he got thrown out of this meeting too. Kind of just speaking on Bielema in Illinois, they're kind of a team that's kind of like stuck in the middle of the Big Ten, but I always root for them. I always do. I'm always like, come on, Illinois, make something happen. But yeah, going back to, just if it's going to move from 12 to 16 and when it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. I'm cool with it being 12 teams for the next, 2 years. And then we kind of figure it out because, again, we just had it for one season. That's all we know so far. And the format is changing next year. So let's look at that first and then move on. But, as we've talked about in other previous episodes, college football is based on the future and what's going to happen in the future. Is Utah going to play Rutgers in 2046? Are we going to have a college football tournament of 36 teams in 2055? Is ESPN going to agree with that? Is Brett Bielema still going to be at Illinois? Is he going to get on Ozempic? I hope not. But still, it's just more drama and it's just more, off-season topics that we could totally get into. But again, not too surprised of the leaders of college football not coming together and a clear agreement.
As we've been preaching on this show as kind of a narrative or a theme or a talking point, is you're just hopeful that the leaders that are deemed that in the room are focusing on the all of college football and not just the 2 more prominent conferences at this moment. Because speaking of the future, that could change. The SEC and the Big Ten haven't always been the kings of college football. There's been rises and falls and lulls, and water always finds its level in sports. So I understand why it's important for the SEC to want to get the most favorable end results for them. I understand why the Big Ten wants to get the most favorable end results for them. They want to cash in on their success now and not have to wait 10, 12 years down the road when that might not be the case. Understandably so. But also keep in mind the other 2 now power conferences and the little guys that make college football so great, where these fans are bleeding and dying on every snap to have success for their program, even if that just means getting to a bowl game, to win 6 games and to keep their season going. That's good enough. Even if it means beating their local rival once after maybe losing to them for a decade or so, that could be the starting point of a season and what they plant their flag in as their success. That's what makes college football great. And I understand that these conferences are looking out for themselves, but I'm hopeful that the bigger picture is kept in mind. And I'm not entirely sure that already moving to 16, when, as you mentioned, there will be a new format this year that's supposed to and will be better than the last one. Just see how that works out before we start ripping this up and starting from scratch again when it's not broken.
It's never been broken. And just a weird fact that I saw today that kind of shocked me just about fans will hang on to anything. How many times do you think Florida has beat Miami in the last 30 years?
They would lead you to believe it's probably been 29 times, but they can only remember the one loss. The Miami dynasties versus the Florida dynasties, the Tim Tebows versus the dudes that thought they were good enough to rap.
Yep.
It's probably half the time, 15 times in 30 years.
No, two times.
2 times.
2 times. Isn't that crazy?
That's
And again,
wild.
they went on so many runs, but just going back to that main point of just fans will always be fans. They will always show up every single weekend and watch, no matter what that record even is. So, to the leaders of college football from the Coast to Coast College Football Podcast on Sick Media, please just figure this out, because we're going to watch no matter what, but we want to watch a product that we are proud of and to cover and to work in, instead of just, hey, the top guys are going to make the money, because that just gets old. And then eventually people get sick of it. So no pun intended, sick podcast. But yeah, man, it's just a weird time of the calendar. It's also just reminds me of man, I just can't wait for that first Saturday, man. I can't even wait for week 0, let alone week 1. But yeah, man, just hopefully we get back to it, figure it out, and everyone is just happy. Kumbaya. Another question I have for you too, just to be between this, Cold War between the Big Ten and the SEC. If you asked an average fan who won the championship last year, the SEC or Big Ten, I think most people would say the SEC.
I agree. I think people have forgotten that it not only was the Big Ten, it's been twice, 2 in a row.
Yeah.
The SEC has done that much of reverse damage control to make casual college football fans think that just every year it's an SEC team that wins it. And that's not the case. At least it hasn't been for the past couple of seasons. They could easily get back atop the mantle for this upcoming year, but it's not set in stone. And that's why you have to play the games. And that's why the games have to matter. Unfortunately, for people that are sick of this conversation already, another sick pun that we'll throw out here and there by accident or on purpose. Media days are coming for the SEC, for the Big Ten. We had spring meetings. If you thought that was it, no, there's going to be more of these. Players and coaches get thrown in front of the microphones to talk about their upcoming seasons, not just for day, but for days, plural, 3, 4 days. We got to get all the days in and make sure we hear from all the teams. That's now at 16, 18, 20 for these conferences. So this will get brought up, no question, to every coach and to every player. Whether or not the PR teams of these said schools just have them rattle off a prepared statement and don't want their opinions on the matter that's going to go viral and maybe put a negative light toward their school or the conference in general, we will see. But these questions will be asked, and we'll have plenty to talk about based on whatever the answers are for the next couple months once those kick off.
I do think coaches and players, I would say coaches more than players, have become more honest, and I don't give a F. They don't have anything to really lose at some point, right? You got to win on the field in order to talk and really speak your mind. But compared to the last 5 years where you would get that buttoned up, hey, I don't really want to talk about that, let's just move on, I'm going to give you a very political answer just to make me look okay. I kind of like that we're kind of moving towards an era of coaches just being completely honest. And because at the end of the day, John, we've met so many of these guys, we've talked to so many of them. They're normal people, right? Yeah. They're on such a pedestal, and you see them on TV winning games and looking so important, but behind the scenes, they're just dudes, man. They're just dudes. Yeah. And sometimes some are more business oriented than others. But at the end of the day, they're just dudes, and they're just honest guys for the most part. But yeah, I kind of like this new era of coaches who are just honest and just, hey, this is what's actually on my mind. This is what's going on. This is what we need you to do, aka Brett Bielema, who might become I don't know, a sick media coast to coast football podcast favorite on this show. I should say he kind of represents us too well. So yeah, But yeah, I hope we just get some honest answers from the casinos or wherever they're holding these giant conference, mega centers around the United States. Hopefully we'll get some good answers out of it.
I think it's really been attributed to the rise of social media with these players and how quickly things just get thrown out on TikTok and on Instagram, and they immediately go viral. Now, it only happens for 5 seconds in the grand scheme of things. Stories don't last more than a blink of an eye now, but coaches can use that to their advantage when it comes to recruiting or getting their players excited, where it's, hey, coach is backing us 100%. Did you see his clip on Instagram? Hey, did you see what coach had to say on TikTok for the recruits? Look at who liked it. Player X, player Y, they might be coming to us. The coaches now, just by being themselves and being more open to who they are as people, a lot has changed in the world now where that's something a lot of people look for. Just be genuine, just be honest, and they can do that to their advantage if they're being genuinely honest about answers to a lot of these questions. And they're not just going by what the conference wants them to think, because they might not always be a coach in the SEC or the Big Ten.
Exactly.
If things go awry and they find themselves at a quote-unquote lesser school, what are you going to do now when all these clips that you've been putting out get resurfaced about how you bent the knee and kissed the ring for the SEC? Well, now you're over at a Big 12 school. Are you going to change your mind? How do you feel about it now? They have to be college football fans as well as being spokesmen for their conference. Yes, but the college football fan coach that they are has to be what leads that. You can't just always say what the conference wants you to say, because there's no guarantee you're always going to be there.
Exactly. And just going back, like, I do think these guys are fans of, like, the schools that they were brought up with.
Sure.
Like, do you think Dabo like roots for Bama? Like, kind of in the back of his mind.
I think it probably hurt him too when they beat Alabama to win a national championship, because he knows a ton of people in his normal life that are Alabama fans. So you have to give the I'm sorry's, but had to do my job type of deal. And you see more and more coaches sometimes just deciding the glitz and the glamour and the money is nice, but sometimes you just want to go home. Sometimes you want to be around a fan base that you're familiar with. And I don't fault the coach for that, wanting to go back to either an alma mater or a team that they rooted for growing up, because, again, that was put out there. You played for a team. You may have won a championship with a team. You're a fan of the team. There's pictures of you with polo shirts on their team, and you have to go coach somebody else and fall in love with them. And of course you will. But how rare is it for a coach to become the head coach or an assistant of their favorite team and then stay with that program for 30 or 40 years? It just doesn't happen. It's not a valuable option. It just isn't how it goes. So it's understandable that there's that balancing act for these coaches, and they have to keep that in the back of their head too. Like, it's okay to also be a fan of the school that you went to. It's okay to also beat them and then get the bragging rights against those schools. Again, we can't say it enough about what makes college football great. And that's one of the things about it. Being a fan of a certain school is a lot different than some fandoms, especially for professional leagues. And when you're there and you're immersed in it, if you get to coach that too and bring the program up, if it's not doing as well, it's a dream come true for a lot of these guys. So it's definitely something that runs through these coaches' minds. And if we don't get to hear it, it's definitely something that goes on in the locker room, whether it's side bets with the players or the coaches, or we sometimes see guys wearing a different school's jersey or helmet because they lost the bet over the weekend. Like, that's just what makes it great.
Kittle's definitely into that whole thing. You've seen it with some like Iowa Cyclones, like swag on during some press conferences. So yeah, you're exactly right, Johnny. That's what makes it one of the best sports in this country and why we cover it, brother.
So we had a big decision for the overall of college sports come down in court. The NCAA versus the House. How nice of a simple name, a simple title, and of course, a decision that could completely change the world of college athletics by just the push of a pen to paper. A settlement was reached where the NCAA will pay nearly $2.8 billion in back damages over the next 10 years to athletes who competed in college at any time from 2016 through the present. In addition, this part of it is what has Some people excited and some people dismayed. Schools are now permitted to pay athletes up to $20.5 million in revenue sharing beginning in 25-26, obviously this year. So the too long didn't read is schools can now start paying their athletes, which for a lot of people is good. And for a lot of people, this should have been the case 20, 30, 40 years ago. This should have been what started happening when EA Sports first came out with their video game and wanted to pay the guys and have them part of it. And people said no. And they went to court and fought over it. And it's just been a headache that this hasn't been in the books for many years. The part that people are dismayed about and are worried about is what happens now with the non-football basketball sports. If you're only in quotes again, allotted $20.5 million, where's your $20.5 million going to go? Most schools are going to put most of that toward their football and basketball teams. That brings in the most money. That usually has the athletes that will bring in the most eyes. So they're going to go where the money is. No surprise. Yep. Well, what happens to the tennis team, the golf team, the swimming team, down the list? When the money's going one way, how are they going to get the money back that they're now going to lose? Well, they're going to cut jobs. They're going to cut sports as a whole. And we're going to start seeing the negative aspect of this ruling, although ruling in quotes again, because that's getting taken to court. The Title IX folks are up in arms about it, as they should be, because it doesn't take into consideration the women's sports, because it's just so focused on, oh, this is perfect for football and basketball. Forget about everything else. We'll figure that out later. So it's going to go to court. It's going to be appealed. There could be a change to it. But as it stands now, this is where it is. $20.5 million that schools now have to pay their athletes. How do you think this is going to go? Or your thoughts on it, at least now as it stands, that this is coming up? I think July 1st is the
July 1st is the
yes. Kicks it off.
Yeah, so you're right on July 1st. You know, I think it's like communism. It works in theory and on paper, but when you put it into actual practice, it's going to be extremely confusing. Some schools are going to be better at it than others. And I do worry about the smaller, quote unquote, Olympic sports.
Yeah.
I even worry about a sport like baseball, right? We were talking about at the beginning of the show. One of the best college World Series games of all time were tonight. And, you know, I think on like the pecking order, right, of college sports, baseball probably, it could probably college football, men's basketball. I would even put women's basketball ahead of college baseball right now.
Sure.
And then baseball, right?
And then for a lot of schools, it's, well, what else are we good at?
Yes, and then here we go from there. Sport. Exactly. Yeah, so like let's say Stanford, right? Stanford's very good at golf. Are you going to put all your money towards there? It sucks. It sucks that we keep having these weird, wild conversations about billions of dollars to 17, 18, and 19-year-olds who no doubt deserve a piece of the pie. I completely agree with that. As a former college athlete, I wish I was playing when this was going on as a Division III graduate. I am putting in my claim, and I better get a piece of that. All my King's College brothers better get some money. But no, man, it's a good problem, and it's also a very negative problem. And the other problem that it does not solve, which I thought NAL was kind of going to get ahead of, is like, hey, how do we figure out if player X, who is a 5-star recruit in high school, will transfer into our program and still be that dominant athlete that he was in high school? Because there is no way to predict that at all. I would say, I think out of 10 freshman quarterbacks who have gotten paid over $10 million, 2 of them have started 2 games in their career. All of them have transferred. Every single one of them has transferred. Yep. The last guy to do it was Nico.
To recoup the money that the school or the boosters or whomever gave them because they thought they would be their star. That's money in their pocket and not in the pockets of the sponsors or whoever else thought that they were going to be great.
Now,
which is fine. I mean, the players,
yeah, exactly.
Good for them, man. But
you do what you got to do. Do what you got to do, and no doubt, Like a
icky.
guy like I also think about right now. I'm blanking on his last name. He played at Florida State quarterback Travis is it Jordan Travis?
Jordan Travis broke his leg.
Yeah,
The one
exactly.
that was rumored to go there as well that also has been dealing with NIL stuff from the beginning. One of the OGs
Yeah,
was DJ Uiagalelei, who got like
exactly.
Dr. Pepper and Bojangles and all this stuff
You
at
name it.
Clemson, and it just didn't work out as Dabo would have
Didn't work
liked it
out. And who knows? I don't think he got picked up by anyone in the
to. No,
NFL, like not even just to go on a maybe he can make some money up in Canada, maybe go over to Europe. I don't know. But the fact is that he could have made that money in college and been generationally rich for the rest of his life for putting his body on the line and entertaining us all, bringing so much money to the school. And now he doesn't have that ability. These kids do now. My one thing with it is I would say that there needs to be a contract that gets put into place. When you're signing with the school, you have to be there for at least 2 years. The other side of this too, and maybe a lot of people won't agree with this, but you need to withhold a GPA of a 2.7. I think a 2.7 is a perfect range, right? You're not like a top, like, hey, I'm going to class every single day, because listen, when you play Division I college football, you do not go to class every single day. You're not there for every single lecture. So just give me a 2.7, show up, at least pay attention a little bit, pass your tests, and you could get this money. And if you're not, then you will not be able to get paid in this. And I do think that will add some structure in, because what I worry about these athletes is they're making so much money. It's such a young level with so many people in their heads that money to like $1 million to an 18-year-old kid 10, 15 years ago was what? Now it's like, oh, that's average. And that's terrifying.
Yeah. Sometimes the car is just $1 million itself that they get from some of these teams. And for
Plus
the bigger name schools,
plus gas, like, come on. Yeah.
Bigger name schools are going to get their players money the old-fashioned way if they need. The little under-the-table bag from the old booster that's been a supporter of the school for decades. That 20.5 looks nice on paper, but Uncle whomever is also waiting to make sure that if they can't meet whatever the quota is and make sure everybody's paid on the football team or the basketball team, there'll be a couple people outside the door that might be able to help them out, like the olden days of the boosters and how that used to work in the sport. So there's going to be ways that schools get around it, the bigger schools that have the opportunity to. It's the, again, in quotes, lesser schools that don't make as much money as these big tier programs that are looking around now at, maybe it's easy for them to divvy up the money because their athletics happen to be on an even playing field when it comes to pay, where their football's okay, their basketball's okay, we're okay here. So everybody's going to get an equal share. But for the other schools where it's so top heavy, a lot of that money you would think is going to go toward them. And it's naturally going to impact the Olympic sports and the sports people don't care as much about. And there could be a trickle down effect where athletes who are great in those sports pick the certain schools that have the money for those sports, and it kind of skews how the standings go and which team is great in certain conferences if people are paying attention to that and they're diehard fans of that sport. So there's going to be a ton of effects from it. There always is. For people to just see that this got settled and think that they could just clap their hands of it all and think we're good like Pontius Pilate. Not always. As Pontius learned, things went a little awry afterward. There's always a effect to a decision.
Also, pay attention to the states with no income tax and the programs that are in there. And I'm talking about like a random school like, I don't know, Texas State that is okay at football. They're not in the biggest power conference, but guess what? You could get paid $2 million to come here and be our quarterback, and you don't have to pay any taxes on that, brother. Okay, cool.
Could be future Pac-12 team Texas State. Might be a mention that we'll have in a future episode of the Coast to Coast College Football Podcast. Before we get out of here for a toast or roast, this one close and near and dear to my heart. As we're recording this for a Thursday, it is National Flip-Flop Day.
Hell yeah.
I'm a huge flip-flop guy, especially during the pandemic where we found out you don't really have to dress to the nines. Not like I was anyway. Shorts were...
No, you always looked good, bro.
Shorts, though, were something you could throw on in December just as well as you could in July, and nobody was going to ask you questions during the pandemic. Now, that was a lifestyle in general. We used to call it shorts weather when we had to work in New York back in the olden times when the world was a little bit better. Me and Zach Gelb we had our shorts weather calendar. And when you go out and your legs start freezing, that's when you have to mark the cycle close. But it did go on, especially now with global warming. It goes longer and longer into the year, shorts weather. But flip-flops, 100% toast for me. Keep, obviously, your feet groomed. Don't end up like a Shaq. And for the love of God, if you're going to go flip-flops, I don't really care for the sandals. I'm more of the thong down the toe type flip-flop guy. If you're going to go sandals, if you're going to go another fit, please don't wear the socks with them. Embrace the flip-flop, embrace the sandal, go all out with your flip-flop wearing life. But when you're just running out to get something at the store, running out to put the garbage out, quick little errands where you're not going to be at an office setting, maybe let's not go too far with the old flip-flops, but just general life outside of work or places where you're supposed to look presentable, running errands, checking out a baseball game, playing with the kids, you flip-flop away. I'm a big toast for a flip-flop day.
I am a flip-flop advocate. I'm also a sandals advocate as I hold mine up right now.
Yeah, you are a grand voice for flip-flop day. Living in Los Angeles, this is prime sandal flip-flop attire.
Oh, I would say it depends on what side of the city you're definitely on. Like if you're on the west side, Santa Monica, Venice Beach and stuff, yes, of course, it's extremely acceptable. I think it sometimes is weirder when people are wearing like sneakers on the boardwalk. But John, the one thing I do disagree with you on is if you're a sandal guy like myself, I think you have every single right to wear socks with them. One, from like just like an aesthetic standpoint, I think you look a little bit more proper. Sometimes I don't want to see people's toes,
Sure.
but I guess you could also get that in the traditional thong flip-flop. But
conversely, some people love seeing people's toes.
There you go. Exactly. So, yeah, I guess you never know who you're around. But yes, toast to sandals and flip-flops. Happy National Flip-Flop Day.
Yeah, see, I skew sockless for the most part, and that involves having to run out to the backyard for something. I'll walk on the grass with no socks on, pavement, taking out the trash, whatever it may be, walking down to the sidewalk to get the mail. Don't need socks. If I don't have my flip-flops with me, I'll just go bare, naked, feet.
That's
the
suburb. That's the suburb life though, bro.
Yeah, you can't be doing that in the winter.
I can't do that in the city.
No shoes outside in the snow.
That's a good point too. But yeah, man. Okay, what's your favorite brand?
Whatever's cheap.
Whatever's cheap.
And
okay, we're
what holds up,
Rainbow.
Whatever I have now, and no free ads, but I would definitely give it. I bought a second pair. They were that good to wear. This will be my flip-flop for the foreseeable future, unless someone changes my mind with a quick Instagram post or something. I could easily be skewed. I don't have to twist my arm. Somebody gives you a shot of, hey, this is the best flip-flop in the game. All right, we'll test it out. But just finding the right shoe for a size 14. And what flip-flops, sometimes the bottoms. Remember when we were growing up, we had those stupid Nikes with the balls on the bottoms of the feet that were real popular that you needed socks for, or you would end up with just huge circular holes in your feet when you stopped wearing those shoes. Those slides became like a statement for folks, and they're the most uncomfortable things that you could put on your feet. I'm not sure exactly how that came to be. Crocs. A lot of people love their Crocs. You don't have to put on socks for those.
Do we consider that a sandal?
Yeah, I think it's in the sandal family. I wouldn't put it in the flip-flop family. You keep your Crocs away from us in the flip-flop family. But I think for whatever reason, there was a time sandals, flip-flops got a bad rap from folks because I think a lot of people just have gross feet. You have a nice foot. Hey, you got a nice 14 size foot, for example. Loud and proud. Wear your flip-flops. I don't know why they got a bad rap. I feel like we need to maybe bring them back into the lexicon of our fashion, that it's okay to sometimes throw on a sandal, God forbid.
Bielema is different.
People's ick factor for seeing feet. I get it.
Bielema is definitely a flip-flop guy.
Bielema is a flip-flop during practice guy, no question. When it's hot out and that turf is 116 degrees, he's letting those piggies fly in his flip-flops, making sure that you have enough cushion to where you're not touching the turf, though, because that turf gets hot.
That could get hot.
You know.
It could get hot.
You got to watch out if you're doing that. It's like walking on hot coils. National Flip-Flop Day. Celebrate it proudly, folks. That's our plea as we end the show. That's it for us. The Sick Media Coast to Coast College Football Show. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at London Bridge. He's at Dan Lynch Spurts. That's SPURTS. We're also at SickPod CFB. You can see several clips from the show throughout the week of what we do on our episodes. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Find us wherever you listen to your podcasts and wear your flip-flops proud when you listen to our show.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Coast to Coast College Football on YouTube, X, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.